And I would say to them that there's always ups and downs. Okay. And the most important thing for them is to maintain their confidence and to always build new relationships. Do the things that you actually love to do.
Mm.
And don't do the things that you hate to do or that you're not really good at.
Yeah.
And outsource that. Trust
Hey,
your gut feel.
Micah, for
Yeah.
sure. Welcome to the Break Free Podcast with your host, David Mancilla. Today we have David Engel with us, a very good friend of mine. We we are together in one of the best business coaching schools in the world, and I feel pleased and honored to have you with us today, David.
I think it's the other way. I think I feel honored to be with you today, David.
Thank you so much for making the time. I know you live a very busy entrepreneurial life, and I'll promise you I won't take you. This will not take too long, but it's going to be very profound. How's that?
Perfect.
Fantastic. David, tell me, where do you live and what do you do for a living?
So I live in Toronto, in Canada, and 99% of my business is US based. So I built a business on a Canadian foundation, and then as I grew it, I determined that I wanted to grow that business 10 times. And so as a Canadian, the easiest way to do that is to go south of the border. And that's what I did. I have an agency, a marketing agency that works with large credit card and financial institutions, predominantly in the United States, to help them on their acquisition and retention objectives. I have a unique process in which I increase response rates, I decrease their costs, and I have the ability to move people from a mail file to a digital file, and which reduces their costs and decreases the time to market, et cetera, et cetera. So I've been very fortunate to have developed that, and I'm now working with a lot of the larger financial institutions.
That's beautiful. And while you're actually transforming mail to digital, you're also saving the world.
I'm also saving the world. Although I will tell you that printers and envelope makers were the first recyclers of paper. That goes back maybe 40 years.
Oh,
because
wow.
because it was a cost, it was a profit generator for them, because if they had wasted paper, they would take it away and they would sell it as for recycled paper. So but you're correct. We're saving trees.
That's wonderful. So I know that life happens sometimes to us and for us. How did you get into the entrepreneurial life? Like, were you an entrepreneur all your life, or you started as an employee somewhere?
No, I started I started in a family business, and I was very fortunate to work with my father and his partner. And when you're a son of an owner, you're like a goldfish in a goldfish bowl. And everybody watches you from all sides of the goldfish bowl, and they watch how you swim, and if you stop swimming, and if you're not a very good employee, or you haven't reached your goals, the owners will put a castle in the goldfish bowl, and you'll swim around that goldfish bowl, and they'll put more food over that little castle than anywhere else, so that they know that you get well paid and that you're well fed. But if you're good, then nobody really tells you where to swim, and your goldfish bowl becomes an aquarium, and then becomes a bigger aquarium, and by, I guess, osmosis, or by learning, or by watching other people, what you have to do. And so my father was an entrepreneur. My father and his partner, and they always looked for different ways of doing things. So in order for me, I was the youngest guy, and with 30 salespeople in the business, 20 salespeople in the business, and you had to find your way. So you had to become an entrepreneur in order to have a unique platform and a unique business. And so I started that way. And you make mistakes, you make lots of mistakes. But I was very fortunate to do that. And then I took, strategic coach, which is, is where we met. And it was, and that gave me more, a little bit of a wider breadth of thinking. So, so I've always been, all this to say is I think I've been an entrepreneur since I started my business.
That's beautiful. And did you join the family business right after school, or how did that transition happen?
I started the business. I went, my father always portrayed the business at home as he was always happy. And, and
what a liar.
I learned that afterwards. But to his kids, he was, but I basically went to school. I took a marketing degree, and then I took a master's of science in printing technology in the States because I was going to go into that business. So I went into business, and because my father was the sales individual, I didn't want to go into production. I wanted to go into sales, so I followed his path. So I really I came right out of school into his business.
Right away. So you had no second thoughts. You kind of knew that was your life.
I kind of knew that was my life. That I was really I didn't know how far I was going to go and how I would leave the city to start the business in another city, how I would go to the States to do it. But it gave me the basis and the confidence to know that I was capable and I could find a path that's different than other people, and I could find solutions. And I was a great relationship person.
That's fantastic. And was that already in your DNA, or you learn how to have that relationship skills?
I guess I'm wired that way. I guess I'm, in the same way as you are. You're very outgoing, and you meet people and you build relationships, and you smile a lot. You make people feel at ease. I would say that I'm the same way, and I think that you could learn it, but to me it always came natural, and it's been a reason. Part of my success is my network and my relationships.
So I'm going to tell you a quick story. So, because I want to span that whole, you got into sales right away, and there were another 20, 30 sales guys in the team. My first job ever, I did a co-op term. My father was the president of this company. They made shampoos and perfume for ladies. Like, they were a manufacturer. So they had about 5 salespeople, and they went to sell the products to wholesalers. And I got in. I really needed the money because I really want to marry my wife. And I was still a kid, but we were dating still, but my mindset was to marry this lady. She's still my wife, by the way, so it worked out. But I asked Dad, can you give me a job? And he's like, you gotta learn how to sell if you want a job. So I'm like, yeah, no problem. So I got into this job, and within 6 months, I was making double the money than this most senior guy. And I was just a kid.
Yeah.
And then my dad said, I am not surprised, because the other guys are just order takers. They got their client list, and they got a good reputation with the current client list, and they don't have any passion for growth. So all they do is take the same order every single month. You came, you open a new market, and you are hungry because you have different objectives in life. And I was young, and I didn't have anything to lose. And yeah, that's how kind of I started. That was my first job, which is very similar to you.
Yeah, except your father was nicer to you, because my father paid me a set fee, and if I was a normal person, I would have made 5 times what I was making. So my father wanted me to.
That's good.
My father wanted me to learn.
So you were not on commission?
No, I wasn't on commission, and I think for my first year or two, my wife, who worked 4 days a week and had 6 weeks holiday, made more money than I did, and I worked 6 days a week, and so I made a whopping $8,000 a year. So it was in those days. If you came out of university and you sold calculators for Burroughs equipment, you made 14,000, and I was dealing. I was making 8. But it's a great lesson, I guess. You'll learn. You'll learn how to do that.
Why would I do that? Do you know what was the reason after all that?
Why he did that?
Huh?
I think he just didn't want, he knew I would be successful, and he didn't want me to, he didn't want it, me to get, have excess money right away. And he wanted me to understand the value of a dollar.
Yeah.
And so that's it. What I do I do that with my kids? No, because I don't think it's fair.
Yeah.
But listen, there's things you learn from your parents that you do with the kids and you don't do with your kids.
You know what though? Like the whole experience that I had with that was, it's funny, I forgot that part of my life. It's the first time I tell this in public. The whole thing that came out of the situation is the owner of the company realized the kind of money I was making, and he lowered my commission percentage.
Yeah.
But not only mine, but everybody else's.
Yeah.
So it was a huge mess. I got so mad, I quit. You can imagine, right? Like, it was such a mess, and I just disrupted the entire company. People were mad. It didn't up working out well for anybody. I tell you that.
No. Your experience is a common experience in the printing business. You always had one or two salespeople who were very successful, and three or four who were mediocre, and the print salespeople who made a lot, the good ones made a lot of money, and made more money some years than the companies themselves that they were selling for, without any of the risk that the owners took.
Yeah.
So it was a common problem, and what they did is they went to a value add situation, but they basically reduced people's commission, which pushed them to go out on their own, by the way, and just become an entrepreneur in their own right.
Yeah, and you know what? And that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? For me, it made me focus back in computer science, which was always my passion. But with that kind of money, I would have been still selling for that company.
Yeah.
Right? Because especially you're a kid, it's just attractive, right?
Yeah. And now in this day and age, that type of business is very commoditized.
Yeah. And that's the thing, everything moves. But I think becoming a salesperson is one of the most brilliant things everybody have to learn how to do it. Because people think that they are not salespeople, but if you are actually getting paid by the hour, you're selling your time. You're still selling. Everybody sells, right?
That's right. Well, we have my lawyer, my son is an accountant, and I said, you know what, you can find on every street corner there's accountants. But if you're good at bringing in new business, and if you're good at developing business, they'll never get rid of you.
Mm-hmm.
And so the key is to build relationships, to find new clients, and and really to become an entrepreneur in the accounting world.
For sure. So did you actually ended up taking over your family business, or you branched off on your own?
So I basically, so in the Canadian world, in those days, Montreal was the center of business in Canada. And when the political climate changed and a separatist government came in, or a French-speaking government came in, a lot of the multinationals moved out to Toronto. So what I did was, they sent me to develop the market in Toronto. So I ran my own business and my own sales office for a printing company in Montreal. And so I developed that. So in that sense, I ran my own business. And then from the success there, I went into the United States. But I worked there until my father sold the business to a public company. And I recognized that I didn't want to work for somebody else.
Right.
That my father's part were very smart. They left me alone. They talked about goals. They talked about establishing the market. They talked about all these things, and they never really, made me write reports or do things. I did that. I delivered, and they understood. And then when you come to a public company, they're not as
I know it's
not as liberal. Not flexible sort.
Yeah.
But they were very good to me. I have nothing wrong to say, but when my father retired, I went out on my own. Because I didn't want to compete with my father, but when he retired after he sold the business, I went out on my own.
Beautiful. So you just resigned it was a job for a public company. You resigned and you were on
Yeah,
your own. By then you
yeah.
already have business acumen, I guess, right?
Yeah. And you have different business. You have some strengths that and some of the things that you recognize you're not really good at. You hire people to do, but you had the business acumen and you understood the business.
That is wonderful.
And yeah. And it was actually the fact that I couldn't meet my goals that I wanted by working with this public company.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what pushed me out. And I spoke to my father about it. We had this conversation. He knew I waited. I knew a year after when he retired that I was going to, or that after he sold it, that I wasn't going to stick around. And I waited 4 years till he sold the shares and retired. And then I left.
That is such a beautiful story. Were you afraid when you took that jump?
No, I should have been afraid. But I wasn't afraid at all, because I knew it was the right thing. You learn afterwards, you make mistakes, you learn, but I wasn't afraid right then. I don't really think, I'm a quick start guy. I say, okay, I'm going to do this, and I don't think of the things that could go wrong, and I say, okay, I'm going to go do this, and that's what I did. Were you afraid of when you started your business?
God, I was so afraid. I was so afraid, dude. I was so afraid. It's funny because my corporate jobs were mostly on publicly traded companies, and I just knew that I could do things better. It was beautiful for me because I learned the corporate world. Now I sell to corporations, so it's beautiful because you know how the bureaucracy and politics work. But it was just too slow for me. I will change jobs every 2 years. I will go in, maximize the IT team. And once I work myself a job, I will get bored. They will never fire me, but I will get bored. And then I will jump to another company. But the last job that I had was strategic. It was a smaller company. It was, for billions of dollars in sales. I went to a $500 million company. And the owner, because it was smaller, I actually knew the owner, the majority shareholder. And he gave me great advice. I told him that I was going to be there for the last 2 years until I made my magic happen, and then I will jump into my own. So he actually coached me a bit on how to start.
Oh yeah.
But even with all that, I was paralyzed. I took my notice. I had no financial backing because I got a loan. I tried to get my own business in the 90s. I got a big loan from the bank back then. For me, it was a big loan anyway, and I just failed. And I ended up selling the business and paying off the loans, which was such a blessing because I should have been bankrupt. So the next business, I said to myself, I'm going to do it without lending. So I went completely on my own, and I had nothing to show for it, but my wife she had a professional job, so she was paying the base of the bills, so I could risk it. But my fear, my God, David, it was horrible. To the point that I didn't spend a penny for the first 2 years in business. I didn't have a salary. I was thinking, if this contract ends, I'm going to be out of business. I remember my first contract lasted 6 months. It was supposed to be a 2-month contract, lasted 6 months, and I made more money in those 6 months than I would have made in 1 year working for somebody else.
Wow!
But then I had no business. I had no contracts for 3 months, and I got freaked out again.
Yeah, it's ebbs and flows, right? Ups and downs.
Yeah,
it's and great learning. Great learning experiences. But that's what makes it exciting. That's what's. I actually decided I was going to go into business, and I hired a consultant. The best $1,500 I ever asked to help me do a business plan because I had to go to the bank, and I wanted to go to the bank to get some money for, you have to buy paper and you have to do these things, and it was I spent that $1,500, and I actually was going to go to a large printer to give him the idea that he would front the money and the equipment, and I would own 50% of the business. Mm-hmm. And he had the right to buy the business for in 5 years for for the value of the business at that particular point. And because they had a history of doing this, and I did that. But he said, well, what happens if they say no? What are you going to do? And they're going to ask you, come work for us, and we'll give you a. And I said, well, I don't really want to work for somebody. So I did a business plan on not owning equipment and being a totally intellectual capital business.
Oh, wow.
And I went to meet these guys hoping that they would say no, because I recognized that I had more freedom not having any equipment and doing this in the intellectual capital business and coming up with my own ideas. And so they said no. They said, we don't do that anymore. Come work for us. I'll give you stock options. And I said no. So that's the story. That's how it. So it's and then I was scared.
So you, of course, because now you were completely on your own with nobody backing you.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Did you get a loan from the bank then, or?
I got a loan from the bank. So it's really I knew another lesson. I came to the bank, and I had a great business plan, and I wanted $50,000. Okay, so I signed personally for the $50,000. I had $50,000 of cash in the bank, so there was my security, and the first week I got a large order from Procter & Gamble, and it was close to about $350,000. And it was my first program. So I went to the paper company. I said, listen, I need paper. And he says, well, you have to pay for your paper up front. So I went back to the bank and asked them for, enough money to cover the thing, and I would pay them back. And they threw me out because they said, you clearly don't know your business. I just gave you $50,000. And I said, I know, but this is great. I just, got my 6 months of sales in one order. And it's a AAA client, it's Procter & Gamble. And he said, we're not giving it to you. And I then learned that banks are not your friend.
Yeah.
And so I went to Procter & Gamble, and I said, listen, I can buy some paper right away. It's a great deal on paper. Could I bill you for the paper right away, because it's a great deal, and I want to, I didn't lower the price on the job. I just said I can get this paper right away. And they cut me a check in 10 days.
You're the same client.
Yeah, they're very good. That's relationships.
Yes.
That's all about relationships. That's all about relationships. So that's so that's you look at the problem, you find the solution, you go ask, and so it worked out.
And I love thanks for sharing. I love that lesson, because a lot of people, especially small business entrepreneurs, think that big corporation they have all these rules and you have apply by the rules. This is Procter & Gamble. Like, who are you to go ask for the money in advance? Yeah. And they actually did it, right?
Yeah.
Just a limiting belief, right?
Yeah, and it's the power of relationships. I dealt with them before. I know, they knew me, and if they like you, they help you. So I'm very lucky in that respect. I was very, very lucky in that respect.
That is fantastic. I truly believe that you are the product of your relationships. That's it.
I absolutely believe that. I would agree with you.
It's the power of the network. And if you want to become somebody, you have to add enough value in your network so that they add value back to you, right?
And the strength, and we've had this conversation before, both when we take this course, but the value of the relationships gives you capabilities that you don't normally have, and that if you put two of those relationships together, you get a totally new product and a totally that nobody's ever thought about. So it's a very powerful. Relationships are the key.
It's amazing. And everything you do is for people anyway, right?
Yeah.
Like, we keep forgetting that. At some point in my business, I was so focused on just generating revenue that I lost track that I was building software for people. And I was building technology to help other people, until I finally came back and realized, and I had an awakening where I'm like, what am I doing? I have to add value, and then the money comes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Unless you are David and you can ask for the money in advance.
Yeah. So now, by the way, I've learned three things. One is I don't owe the bank any money. Okay, so I don't owe the bank any money, and I'm not into the bank at all. And two is that even in my business, I ask for interim payments. I ask for 40% with the order, 40% halfway through, and 20% at the end. And in my business, no one does that. You know, they give you the order, you produce it, and you deliver it. We change the rules, and you just have to say, this are the rules of the game. This is the way we work.
But the only way you can pull that off is that if you're the best. If you're the best, they will say yes. But you have to work on being the best, right?
Yeah, and you have to have something nobody else has.
You know, I was in a business group about 5 years ago, and this friend of mine that has his own business, he had a call center for tech companies. That was his business, and he signed a deal with Microsoft. And the deal was humongous. It was like 5 times what his capability was. So he went and did it, and you know, he grew the capability to be ready to start this new contract. And something happened in the middle. I think it was the crisis, the 2008 crisis, and Microsoft couldn't commit anymore, and he was bankrupt. But he went bankrupt. He had to start all over again with another business.
I will tell you that I had a similar situation.
Really?
So my business is one in which I have no contracts, like full-time contracts. It's always program by program by program. Now I have some contracts, but it was always program. And on January 1, I would say, okay, I have to, you know, I know that I'm going to do X amount of millions with this one, X amount of millions with this one, X amount of millions with this one. And so I had this big opportunity with a retailer to handle all their loyalty work. And I was doing work. I had a specialty in loyalty and a specialty in banks with credit cards. Make a long story short, I had a $14 million business that was very profitable. My costs were, you know, $7-8 million. So, you know, it was very profitable, and the rest was. I took this big contract, and I had to gear up because it would give me another $5 million a year of revenue for 5 years, so $25 million, and it cost me about $750,000 to get this contract. I had to do pitches, I had to develop, I had to hire staff, I had to expand my space because I had performance delivery things. We were going to test for 6 months and then roll out across the country. After the test, they said and I lose money on the test, right? Mm-hmm. I lose money on the test. And the test basically lasted 6 months, and they said, we're delaying the rollout for 2 years. And oh, by the way, you have to maintain your service standards. And at the same time, my 3 largest clients were an airline loyalty program that decided that they were renegotiating their contract with the card suppliers, the credit card suppliers. And the credit card suppliers said, we're not promoting your card anymore because they were playing hardball to get the price of a mile down. And so my $10 million of credit card acquisition and loyalty went out the window. So all of a sudden, one day in 1 week, I lost like $10 million worth of sales in the next year.
My God.
And so it was a challenging time. So I know exactly that story. I know exactly that story that Microsoft got. And so I had to go to my suppliers, and I had to, I said, listen, I've been loyal so far. I'll be loyal again. I just need a little break. It was a interesting time.
This story that you tell me, it's the reason why I think entrepreneurs, we are warriors, right? We're gladiators.
Yeah.
Imagine your mindset. You're like, oh my God, I'm going to increase my business 20%. And at the end of the whole exercise, you actually lost half the business. This is crazy. And this is normal for an entrepreneur, by the way.
Yeah. See, and here's the difference. The difference is, I told my kids, about this little challenge, where my father would never tell me that when he had a challenge like that. So because they have to know that there's ups and downs.
Yeah.
And to expect, and it's okay if you go down, because it's not a question if you're going to go down. It's what happens when you're down and how fast you come right back up.
Exactly. And you know what? Like the entire, if you analyze your entire life, not only business is like that. I came to realize that we are a wave. Everything goes into waves, and a wave is not linear. A wave has ups and downs. So what you try to do is your down has to take you higher than your lower high, right? Your higher.
That's right.
That's all you're trying to do, but it's inevitable. You're gonna have lows. You're gonna have ups. That's called life.
That's right. That's absolutely correct. And you learn to handle the lows and the ups. You learn what you have to do when you're up, and you learn what you have to do when you're down.
But you don't have to have nerves of steel. It's funny because my brother was always an entrepreneur, and when I told him I wanted to jump, I had an amazing job. Like I was paid really well. I was very high up in the corporate ladder, managing a lot of people, and I told him, hey, I'm gonna go from making this much to zero. What is your advice? And he said, you have to build nerves of steel, and you have to have a superhero mindset. You do those two things, you're going to be successful in business.
Yeah. It's hard to think about those. It's hard to think about those things at 3:00 in the morning, but nevertheless, it's very true.
Yeah. But the payoff though, right? The payoff is freedom.
Yes.
That's why if you look at my thing is break free, right? It's freedom.
Yeah.
That's what.
Yeah.
Right.
And once you're free, you never want to go back to the other situation.
Yeah.
Once you're free, you don't want to go back to the other situation.
This is what we have as entrepreneurs. It's called unemployability. We're unemployable.
Yeah. Well, in my world, I only do three things. And I only open new doors. I only develop new ideas and lay new track, and I solve problems. And I couldn't do that for an employer. I'm sorry, I don't do that. But I couldn't do that.
Yeah,
I couldn't. Yeah.
It's funny because for the first 7 years of my career as an entrepreneur, I had in the back of my mind, I can always get a job if this goes bad. I can always get a job if this fails. It was almost like my safety net because I became so good at getting jobs. I was good at selling myself. Yeah. But then after that, I always knew. You know what I did? I never removed my LinkedIn profile, and I never removed all my, like when I used to be an executive. So I will get headhunted still because that reminded me that I could actually still get a job.
Yeah. I never wrote a resume.
That is beautiful.
I never wrote a resume. I went to work. When I first went out, I went to work for my, with my father. So so I didn't have to write a resume, but I never wrote a resume.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I was a master resume maker. A master.
I'm sure you were. I'm sure you were. But you were ahead of your time, because where you went every 2 years that you started another job, that's the norm now. People don't stay around in businesses for a long period of time.
Yeah, back then in IT was 5 to 7 years minimum.
Yeah.
Even in IT,
Really.
Yeah.
No, it's a different world today, but which is good for us, because if you have a relationship with somebody in one company, they're going to move to another company. You start to deal with them in the other company. So it's there's always a positive side.
So quick question: if you had somebody, especially like a kid between 25 and 30 years old, and this kid had a good job, but it's always been in their heart to open their own business, what advice would you give them?
I would say to them that that there's always ups and downs. Okay. And the most important thing for them is to maintain their confidence and to always build new relationships. And I would say to them that that do the things that you actually love to do,
Mm.
and don't do the things that you hate to do or that you're not really good at.
Yeah.
And outsource that. So to me, when I started my business, I had to have 8 salespeople. I had to have production people. I used to have an estimator. I used to have a bookkeeper and things of this nature. Today, I have 3 people in my business.
That's it.
And the rest, that's it. And the rest, I have a series of consultants, thought leaders in their space that I reach out to on the basis of what their skill set and what the skill set I need is. And I give them, and so there's lots of talent out there that you can reach out to, and you don't necessarily have to make that investment in terms of people. Yeah.
That is so great.
So listen, I think every individual is different. Every business is different to what they want, and I think that I think you just have to know yourself. But I would also say that you have to build up some money that I would, excuse my language, I would say is FU money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that if there's some job or some program you don't want to do, or some customer who's not worth it, that you have the ability to say, you know what, it's not for me. Thank you so much.
Yes. Actually, I learned that lesson so hard because I was so dependent on the next client, so dependent on especially at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
My God, I will work for like I will bend my own rules. I will do whatever it takes to get the client just to, just to fall on my
Yeah.
face every single time until I learned that value. So that valuable lesson, right? So I will actually start building some equity in the company so that I could choose my clients better.
And I would tell, I think that's a real value. I make sure they know what you do well and what your value proposition is. But I would tell you also something that I learned again recently is that I would ask people questions. I would go out to as many entrepreneurs that I know, and I would ask them how they started the business, what they learned, what's the one lesson you would say, so that you don't you have the luxury of not making those mistakes yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And the more people you ask about, first of all, people will think it's very nice of you to ask, that it's a compliment that you've asked them. But I believe that if you ask them questions, that they'll give you advice, and that they'll give you the knowledge that they've learned.
For sure. What's David? What's in your future? Are you ever going to retire, or are you going to keep going?
It's really interesting. No, so I won't retire. Well, first of all, listen, I work 4 days a week now, and I only do the things that I love to do. And I do it with my daughter. So I'm very blessed that my daughter works with me. And it's a challenge for me. I was looking. I do a lot of volunteer work, not-for-profit work, community hospitals, different organizations for elderly, and I'm a fundraiser. So if you're a relationship guy and you could sell, I thought maybe that my second career would become a fundraiser, but I'll tell you, I don't tell people my age. That's because beautiful. When you tell them your age, they put you into this box that says, why, you're going to retire. No, why?
Why?
No.
I also don't believe in retirement. Actually, I found this crazy statistic that says, especially in males, if males retire within 5 years, if they don't add value to their life or others, they die.
Yeah, they get very old.
Very fast.
Yeah. They also realize that newspapers have a lot more content in them than when. but I would say to you, it's listen. During this pandemic, it was I used to travel every week for business, and I haven't traveled since March 19th or March 13th of 2020. And I used to travel every week, like 2 days. So tough on my wife. No, very kidding.
Yes.
But,
You still married?
40, I should say 43, 44 years, but
It's a
yeah,
blessing.
very
It's a
happily.
blessing.
Yeah, it's a blessing. I'm telling you. So I couldn't, I couldn't stay home. It's
Yeah.
not for me. It's not for me.
It's funny because it's you're completely right. Even like I learned to do these mini retirements where I will go away for 2 months or 3 months. Even those get boring.
Yeah. I'm a 7 day or 8 day. Like I can go on a beach and read for 8 days, and I said, okay, I'm ready. And already by day 5, I'm already thinking of things I have to do and what the next thing is. But no, and I'll tell you, my future is much bigger than my past.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. My future is bigger than my past. The minute my past becomes, you look at some of your friends who start talking, who retire, and they always talk about who they dealt with in the past and what when they were working here. When your past is bigger than your future, you're in trouble.
It's not exciting anymore, and you lose the sense of purpose, right?
Yeah. Very, very true. It's very, very true.
So
Will you retire?
no, for the contrary, like I used to have one business. Now I'm responsible for 8 businesses, but now I'm co-creating, right? So these other businesses, I have CEOs and people that run the business, and I'm just part owner.
Yeah.
And it's just because thanks to Coach and Dan Sullivan, I'm realizing that co-creation is the game. So how can I add more value through others?
Yeah.
Who's the right who for me? And it brings me so much excitement. And like you said, and that doesn't mean I'm working more. If anything, I'm working a little bit less.
I'll give him lots of credit. I'll say that Dan Sullivan, when I took his course, he said some people are going to change. Like I've been doing his course for 30 years.
That's incredible.
And he said, some of you are going to change your job. Some of you are going to get divorced. You're going to clean up your messes. And I said, who's going to change their job or their career for, at that point, it was I think, $3,000, $3,500 a year. Okay. And who's going to do that? And I was the guy who did that.
Wow.
I was the guy who did it. And I could tell you lots of stories. He's made me $1 million. Easily he's made me $1 million more. Because he told me I have to charge for my wisdom.
Yeah.
And so, you learn, you go along, you learn, you test, and you try it. And it's changed my business, changed the business. So it's great.
And what's funny? When you actually charge for your wisdom, they take it more seriously.
It's unbelievable. Right? And yeah, absolutely. And that you have the strength to say, this is the way we work. This is the only way we work. And if you want to work with us, this is what it takes. So you have to be confident, but it's very true.
But it's that beautiful. It's that beautiful persistent, isn't it? And I love it. From our conversation, one of the most important things is be persistent, the ups and downs, and also your future has to be bigger than your past. That's so profound, because if you live like that, you're gonna wake up excited every morning, saying, "Okay, let's go get this future."
And be grateful. Be grateful. You have to be grateful for what you have, and for the people you meet.
Yeah, thank you, brother. Likewise. You know what? For me, I was always thinking, the biggest failure in life is to reach your goal and realize that wasn't it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people do that. I did that to myself. I had a financial goal. I worked my life out of it. I almost got divorced, lost my kids. I almost threw everything away for that goal. And once I reached it, it was so empty. Because, people think I'm going to be sipping margaritas all day and I'm going to be having fun. No, you get bored in 3 days.
And goals change. Goals change.
Yeah.
Goals change, which makes it exciting, because my goals that I had 10 years ago are totally different than my goals today. So it's and your goals get wider or narrower. You have kids, your goals, want to make sure that if you do it right, that your goals include your kids and your family and so it's and your friends. It changes as they should, as they should,
Exactly.
as they should,
If you had
as they should.
a billboard in the widest
Yeah.
highway on earth, what would you write in it?
Oh, there's so many things, So if I think back upon it, I would probably say rules I live by. Be grateful. Be kind to others.
Mm-hmm.
Make your future bigger than your past.
Definitely.
And protect your confidence.
Protect your confidence. That's so wise.
Yeah.
For sure.
So those are, I could write a lot more, but I think those, you can only tell people 3 things that they'll remember. Yeah. So I gave you 4, so
and that's why that was always put in a billboard. So you only have enough space, right?
What can I ask you what yours would be?
Mine? Listen to your heart.
Oh, very good. Very good. Very good.
I've been going through this crazy transformation the last one. I'll say last 7 years, but especially the last 2 years. Yeah. And I'm practicing this heart and brain coherence exercise. Yeah. And the more I open up my heart and I let it drive, everything is just flourishing. And yeah. I'm not talking about money alone, like everything, like relationships, life, love, compassion, learning how to take the downturns, the heavy downturns. The more I look into my heart, the happier I become.
Yeah. I would also add on trust your gut. Trust your gut.
My God, for sure.
Yeah, I would say if your gut says it's right, it's right. If your gut says it isn't, I can't tell you. You have those 1 or 2 experiences when you shouldn't be doing this, and lo and behold, you don't listen and right away, why did I do this? Yeah. So I think that's really valuable.
It's fascinating that you said that, because I'm so much into studying how the human body works. And you know that we have neurons in our gut and in our heart.
Really? I didn't know that.
In your heart, you have more than 40,000 neurons. So it's another 2. We have 3 brains, not 1. 3. Wow. Your gut, your heart, and your brain.
And your brain. Wow. I'm going to do it. Very, very interesting. Very interesting.
Crazy,
so it's yeah. So it's and I'll tell you, this pandemic puts things into focus also. Tells you what's right, what's important, and what's not.
It puts so many things in perspective too. Like, it allows you to slow down and appreciate your life and the stuff that you used to do. Every time that I go into a plane now, I've been blessed to go in a couple of planes lately. I feel blessed. I'm like, this is crazy that I'm able to go from point A to point B in such a short time. And before, I used to complain that the lineups and the plane food and blah, blah, everything was complaining. Now I'm like, thank God I'm in this plane.
Yeah.
And you don't even get peanuts anymore.
I haven't been yet. But I'll tell you, my travel will change. I'll take more time. I'll take my wife more. I'll do more. I won't rush it. Like, I used to run for a plane to get out early. Now I'm not going to do it anymore. Yeah. It's not. It's interesting. It's real interesting.
It's the freedom found during COVID, right? Because now we can do things with Zoom. People are more open to the remote calls, right?
It's great. Yeah, it's really very powerful. You'll learn to do your presentations in 23 minutes or 24 minutes. My hour, 45 minutes. I used to go have presentations for an hour. More than that, you can't usually get within large organizations, unless it's a really it's a team thing. But today, you get 30 minutes. They're late. They're always late 2 or 3 minutes, and they always have to leave 2 or 3 minutes earlier. So you have to do it within that, and it works. It's fine. It's actually you're focused. I use my impact filter.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
David, thank you so much for your time. I don't want to abuse it. If people want to find about your company, about yourself, where can they find you online?
InnovativeHRT.com. High response technology, InnovativeHRT.com. Or you can go to David Engel, Engel, on LinkedIn or Navigator, and I'll be there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, David. Thanks for all your
Thank
wisdom.
David, thanks for giving me the opportunity, and always a pleasure to talk with you.
That's all for today's episode of the Break Free Podcast. Head on over to iTunes and subscribe to the show. Starting your own business can be tough, but it doesn't have to be. Visit davidmansilla.com to pick up a copy of the #1 international best-selling book, Breaking Out of Corporate Jail. Expand what you consider to be possible and reach your full potential. And join us on the next episode.